Well, I want to take a brief minute and welcome everybody to the podcast. I'm glad that you're here listening. I hope that what you hear today will bless and encourage you as we continue on through our At the Movies series. And maybe it's the At the Movies series that brought you to check us out. If so, and this is your first time checking us out, I would love for you to go to our website, thepointofocus.com, where you can go and find out more information about us, see who we are, what we're doing, and why, and all of that, as well as find the episode archive. And you can go there and you can check out old episodes. You can follow along with any previous episode, including ones that belong to a series like this. You can check out last week's At the Movies episode if you would like. You can also check out our Shining Light series that we've been in for the last year and a half as we're journeying through the Gospel of John together. And so that's there, that's available. And I mentioned the Shining Light series because we are on a break from that series right now. And I'm excited to pick that back up. Man, God is doing a lot in me as I'm preparing these episodes, as I'm looking through the Gospel of John still, and just kind of slowly walking through that book is just wonderful. So once again, that's thepointofocus.com. I hope that you'll go and check that out. I hope that you'll continue to listen to these episodes. I hope that you'll share them along, pass them along to your family and your friends. And once again, I hope that it encourages you and that it blesses you in some kind of way. So, for those that might be new to an episode like this, typically these At the Movies episodes, we focus on a movie. I tell a little bit about the storyline of the movie and all of that. But typically these episodes center around the overall theme of the movie. Sometimes they can center around like a certain scene of the movie. Sometimes they center around like a particular line in the movie. But today we are continuing on through this series. So if you have a copy of the Bible, whether it's paper or electronic, and you want to open it on up to the Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes. Yes, Ecclesiastes. So if you want to find that easy, just kind of grab a hold of the Bible kind of in the middle. You should probably be around Psalms, Proverbs there, and kind of go over a couple books. And it's there for you. Also, if it's an electronic Bible, it's a little bit easier to find. But once again, paper or electronic, doesn't matter. Ecclesiastes chapter 4 is where we're going to be. Once again, that electronic idea of the Bible, the YouVersion Bible app, it's free it's free wherever you get your apps, and all of that, you can just download it. It's got multiple different translations of the Bible, and you can just go and get that, and that'll help you. The Bible app reads it to you and all of that, but it's just the YouVersion Bible app. The logo is a brown Holy Bible, and you just get that and download it, and then you'll have the Bible with you wherever you go. So if you want to check that out as an option for the Bible. Now, real quick, so we are looking at the movie Up today. This is, I typically don't talk about favorite movies because it's hard for me to pick favorites. I like multiple movies, but this has been one of my go-to kind of long time movies. It's got elements of like humor in it and just stuff like that. And sometimes it's that silly, goofy humor that kind of gets me laughing. Other people are like, why are you laughing so hard? It's not really that serious. But nonetheless, that's what kind of gets me, like several parts in the movie, like just the random things that the characters say, the surprise of especially the initial part of the movie when they're kids and he's kind of snooping around in her clubhouse or whatever, and she sneaks up behind him, hey kid, and all this stuff. It's funny. So, but basically this movie begins with two kids, and he goes in to investigate a house there, but it's this little girl's clubhouse. Fast forward, they wind up getting married. They wind up buying that clubhouse, and renovating it and kind of flipping it in a way, and they wind up living in it, and that's their house. And throughout the opening sequence of the movie, a lot happens. They get married. She wants to go to a place called Paradise Falls, which is said when they're kids, and she really wants to go there. She wants to do all of that, and so she's got this adventure book that she has carried around with her. And in that adventure book, all the things that she's done and all the things that she will do, all those things. And so that's kind of like the goal of their initial part of the movie and their marriage. But every time they get, and it shows them, by the way, good saving tip for those that might be listening to that, like, you see them putting coins in a jar that's labeled Paradise Falls, and so they just keep putting their change in there, but then a flat tire happens, and it shows them breaking the jar, and they are able to buy a tire with the money that they saved, and then a tree falls on the house, and these different scenarios and things like that come up that keep breaking into the jar. And at one point, they're going to start a family, and that doesn't go over. They wind up having a miscarriage with that, and it's just kind of like just a sad sequence there. But as the opening sequence continues, it shows the jar is now moved from like the coffee table or an end table to now up on the shelf. It shows them having aged and things like that. But right up at the end of that first opening sequence, they're going out to a picnic, and he's got tickets to Paradise Falls in the picnic basket, but his wife isn't doing too good, and she eventually passes away as well before he could even give her the tickets that were in the basket. And then it just kind of transitions to him getting up in the morning, getting ready. The house is a typical, I'm going to say an elderly house where things are put in the same order, the same place, the same, maybe even like what we have in our house. But it reminds me of like my grandparents' house. When I would go over there, things would be in the same spot, like it's hardly moved or changed or whatever. Maybe that kind of falls into a younger people's house as well, where things are just but it's just very stationed out. Anyway, it shows him getting ready, and he goes out and sits on his front porch, and it zooms out, and there's just a big construction zone with this one little house, and he's refusing to sell his house. He doesn't want to sell it, all this stuff like that, because he's holding on to the memory and just the life that he had with his wife in that house. And so he's doing life alone, really. He's just not into anybody. He's not into anything. He doesn't want anything, like anybody to bother him, just kind of like, I'm going to say typical grumpy old man scenario here. Anyway, he then gets into a confrontation with one of the businessmen, one of the construction worker, and he winds up striking him with his cane. It leads them to referring him to an assisted living community, which he ultimately doesn't want to go to. He tricks them into thinking that he's going to come, and winds up having thousands of balloons attached to his house that carry his house away, and he heads off towards South America so he can go to Paradise Falls and kind of basically plan his house there. He's got all of his stuff and everything like that, and he can just go there and be content and all of that. But once again, I want to point out he would still be alone doing this scenario, because there would be nobody there probably where he was going to be. But in the meantime, a little kid had come up to his door and was going to knock on his door and was going to ask him for help or whatever. And the little kid was already there one time. He told him to go do something for him, and he comes back, and he winds up knocking on he sits down in his chair, and he hears a knock on the door. And he knows that can't be because he's in the sky, right? But it's that little boy that was trapped on the porch when his house took off. And so the rest of the movie basically is them going to on their journey to Paradise Falls, and the ups and downs that they have, and they meet one of the old wilderness explorers that his wife, sorry, words sometimes difficult, that his wife used to like idolize and follow and all of that, and turns out not to be such a nice guy. They wind up getting a dog to come along with them. They also have this big bird named Kevin, and all of these different things that happen. And he winds up getting to where he's going, despite the fact that he didn't want it. Like, the Russell, the little boy, really does help him out, and it turns out to be a good moment. So I know that's not the whole scenario of the whole movie, and I could go into greater detail, but the main initial part, a lot of the movie happens in that first sequence, right? Where he's now dealing with like being alone without that companion. And because of the bond that they had, right? He doesn't want to have anybody else. He doesn't want to have anybody's help. And that sequence in that movie has gotten really great reviews over the years since its release. But it shows a couple of things. It shows the value of companionship, marriage, the way God intended it to be. A lifelong bond that is emotionally and all of that attached to it, and when one spouse or the other is departs, it causes this grief. And while that's not what this episode is about, it's still there, and it's still present with the passing of any loved one, any spouse. And he would rather be alone than be with anybody else, to do anything else. Like, they had a long marriage, they had a long life together. And so I want to point that out. As we always say on here, we're not meant to do life alone. And this movie depicts that. This movie depicts this bond that a married couple can have. And the grief and the pain and the sorrow that comes when that person's not there anymore. And the temptation then to continue to want to be alone, to not have anybody around you, to not have any help. And that's where this passage in Ecclesiastes comes in. That's where this moment with God comes in. Because he doesn't want us to be alone. Like, you could say, we're never alone because God's always with us and all of that. Yeah, I understand that. I get all of that. But God was with Adam as well in the Garden of Eden. God was with him, but he still needed a companion. He still needed somebody with him. And it says that as God created Adam, he told him to not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and then they're naming all the animals, and there was not a suitable helper for Adam. So it's almost like God is looking at all of the different things: male and female tiger, male and female lion, male and female bear, male and female whale, all the different things. But there's no male and female human. There's no male and female there's no female for Adam. And so he creates Eve and to do life together. But this passage in Ecclesiastes, the book of Ecclesiastes is a wild book to read because it's almost like one's like depression novel. Like it's Solomon, who, the wisest man that ever lived, had wealth and riches and wisdom and all of this stuff. And he gets to the end of his journey. And the beginning of his book, this beginning of this book of Ecclesiastes says like everything is meaningless. And that's just why, that's why I say this is a wild book to read. And then it says, and the reason I say that is because our little passage here, starting in verse 7, says, I observed another example of something meaningless under the sun. This is the case of a man who is all alone without a child or a brother, yet works hard to gain as much wealth as he can. But then he asks himself, who am I working for? Why am I giving up so much pleasure now? It's all so meaningless and depressing. Two people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But if someone falls, someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Likewise, two people lying close together can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. So, this is, I read verse 7 and 8 because when you read that, it says, a man who is all alone without a child or a brother. And that just stood out to me as I was preparing for this. It just stood out to me because that is Mr. Fredricksen. That is Carl Fredricksen from the movie. He didn't have a child or any other family. He was all alone. And then the rest of it, though, it shows up in the movie as well. Two people are better off than one. Had he gone by himself, there were several different instances in the movie where he needed help. There was one point where the house starts to crash into like the different rocky formations and mountainous area of the place that he's going. And he actually hits the ground and gets jolted off the house. And when that happens, the house then picks back up and starts to float away. But he is able to, he's able to kind of get that, and then he's able to have help from Russell, the little boy, along the way. Like, not just companionship, but like help when certain things aren't going, like when certain things happen. Like, he's able to have that companion there. And this is the, this is what's, and so it says two people are better than one. Like, if somebody falls down, like, that's the point of him trying to get him to go to assisted living so he can be helped, right? And he doesn't want to. He balks at it. He kicks at it. He doesn't really want to do any of that. But that is what is, he's alone. Like, if he were to fall, there were lots of times that my grandma especially would fall, and she would lay where she was for a while because she was alone in the house. I mean, she was married by my grandfather, but he would be out and about, outside or gone or whatever, and she'd be just laying on the floor until somebody showed up, or my grandfather came back, or like whatever. There were multiple cases of that. And this is what I get out of this is sometimes it's okay, and sometimes like we desire to be just like left alone or alone, right? Like sometimes we're just over people and we just need space. We just need some time away. Like, just give me some space. Let me breathe a little bit and all of that. And then sometimes we need those people. It helps with like productivity. Like I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I really don't like team working. Like in school, like when the teacher would get up and be like, okay, we're doing a project, I'm going to pair you off. Like there's no worse sentence, I don't think, in the world that comes to my mind when I was in elementary, middle school, like where you hear the teacher announce like a group project, because it's just hard to work with each other. But sometimes that's what we need, and it's good for productivity. It's good for help. I can get it on my own is the typical lie that we try and tell ourselves. And sometimes we can, and sometimes we need help. But if we try to do it alone too much, we then don't jump into the help that we do need when we need it. Because sometimes we need help. And if we don't got anybody around us, or we're not willing to ask for it, or we're not willing to engage in that kind of conversation, we could be in trouble. That goes with us as we walk with Jesus. The productivity thing too, like getting together with other people and reading the Bible and diving into a small group and all of that kind of stuff. Like it's helpful because we can get good return, good reward for the work. We can get good return as we hear what other people are saying, and we're discussing and talking about what we're reading and all of that. And as a matter of fact, I just got a group text message that my church is going through the book of Proverbs, reading a proverb every day for the whole month. There's 31 days in July. There's 31 chapters in Proverbs. And so we were studying Proverbs as a church during the weekend church services, but we've been encouraged to read Proverbs one a day for the whole month. And so when we do that, and I just got a text message saying, hey, let's get together and do this. One, the reward for that is there's accountability there. There's people there to help. Hey, we haven't heard you say anything. You haven't made a comment about this. You haven't all these different things. And so, but also too, help. When you have people around you, they can be there to help. However we feel about that, but they can be there to help you. And they can provide comfort when we need it. It's hard to comfort yourself. So they can be there to help. We're meant to do life together. We're meant to have that support system. We're meant to have not just family even. Meant to have people around us. And then there's security and safety there as well. We feel safe when there's other people around. We can feel secure when there's other people around to help us do combat, to help us do battle, whether it's a personal thing that we need somebody to help us fight, or whether it's a spiritual thing that we're dealing with, that we're struggling with, and we get together and they can help us fight. That is all of what Solomon is writing there. He's saying that it's meaningless to run through all these efforts, to run through life without companionship, without help. But the main thing he ends that paragraph with, that triple braided cord. It's also pointless and meaningless to chase all of these things without the companionship and the help of God. And this is where we find ourselves today. I understand there may be some people listening that don't have the companionship of God. And I would like to offer you the opportunity to have that. Because he can help you when you need it. He can be comfort. He can provide you safety and security. He can help you be productive. He can give you peace. In the Shining Light series, in John, we've been looking at here lately, it's kind of come up as a recurring theme about true satisfaction and how Jesus is the only one that can provide that true satisfaction. We can try and find comfort in a lot of things. We can find safety and security in a lot of things. We can find help in a lot of things. But Jesus is the only one that's going to provide that true satisfaction, that true love, that true joy, that true peace, the true help, the true comfort, the true satisfaction, the true safety, the true security, all of that. Jesus is the one. And so I want to offer this opportunity, as we've been doing since the beginning of 2025. At the end of every episode, we offer the opportunity for those that want to pray and to invite Jesus to be a part of their life, so they can do Jesus together. We're not meant to do life alone. That's not just human companionship. We're not meant to do life without Jesus. We're not meant to do life without our Creator. And so with that, I would like to offer this opportunity. It's just a prayer that you just repeat after me. Jesus is, Revelation 3:20 tells us that Jesus stands at the door and knocks. He knocks on our heart. He's waiting for us to open the door. He's waiting for us to make room in our hearts for him. Whether we follow Jesus or we don't, we still need to make room for Jesus, because sometimes we like to nudge Jesus around. But with that being said, it's time to open the door. Jesus is never going to force himself in. Jesus isn't going to open the door by himself. He's just going to knock. It's up to us to open the door. So that's the opportunity that is here now. If you just pray this prayer, it's just repeat after me. And you just pray this prayer, and the Bible says that everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Everybody who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Once again, we have to do it. The invitation's already been there, because God sent Jesus to die on the cross for us, so that we wouldn't perish, so that we would have everlasting life. Our theme verse for the Shining Light series is that so we may continue to believe and have life by the power of his name, and that we may have peace in him, in Jesus. So with that, I want to offer this prayer. You just repeat after me. We'll have some next steps. So let's pray. Dear Jesus, I am a sinner. I believe that you died and rose from the dead to save me from my sins. I want to be with you in heaven forever. Jesus, forgive me of all my sins. I open my heart to you now and ask you to come into my heart as my personal Lord and Savior. In Jesus' name, amen. So if you prayed that prayer, I want to encourage you, that's the best step you could take in your entire life. And I want to provide some next steps. Now, once again, it's that togetherness. Tell somebody about it. Get plugged into a local church. Tell your family, tell your friends, all of that, so they can come together, so they can help you, so they can comfort you, so they can provide you with safety and security as we battle what Ephesians says, the spiritual warfare. And then the local church will come in and help you. And they'll equip you and train you and teach you and all of these things. That's what we're there for. And then I also want to encourage you to read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Start reading all you can about Jesus. Then continue on through the New Testament, which was written mostly by Paul, who was a person that decided to follow Jesus. And he wrote the New Testament. He wrote out and wrote letters and all of the he wrote the New Testament. And then we've got some more New Testament books that were written by John, and some other books that were written by some individuals. But read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all you can about Jesus. Read them twice, read them 3 times. Read the New Testament and just dive into it. Find a translation of the Bible that works for you. Once again, the YouVersion Bible app will really help you. They come with many different translations. Main ones churches use will be the NIV, or there's I'm just thinking about the churches in my area, the NIV, the ESV, the NLT, which is the primary one that we use here on this podcast. And just find a translation that works for you to help you understand what God is saying to you the best. And just read it. Just open it up and read it. Don't worry about understanding it. Just read it and let God talk to you. God's going to talk to you. God's going to show you things. Jot down some notes, jot down some questions, ask some questions, and do that. But just read it. Just open it up, read it, and see what God has for you. That's the best way to start. So with that being said, I encourage you to come back to this podcast. That's another thing. Find some podcasts, find some different things to listen to help you with your journey and your walk with Jesus. And I encourage you to come back and check out this podcast as we continue on with our At the Movies series. Next week, we will continue on. We got 2 more episodes in the At the Movies series, and then we will be back into Shining Light. But I hope to see you next week. I hope you'll come back and listen to this as we continue on. So see you next week.